Welcome back to the shop again. What I'm going to be doing today is making this feature ring for a Beads of Courage box. It's 16 segments of diamonds with a maple spacer between them. When I make the box, I'll put a small maple piece underneath and over the top, approximately the same width. It's not hard to make. It is a little time consuming. It's got 16 segments. I cut an extra one. Get a good look at what they look like. Cut an extra segment here for it. And I know a lot of you don't know about the Beads of Courage. Beads of Courage is a program for seriously sick children that stay in a hospital. And a lot of the turning clubs have been making boxes for it. They give these kids the beads, and then they turn to the turning clubs to make boxes for them. And a lot of turning clubs are responding. So that's what I'm going to be making. I'm making a video for just the feature ring today. I'm not going to smooth it out until I'm ready to glue it on to the box. To make this pattern ring or feature ring, whichever one you may want to call it, I'm going to be using maple for the diamonds, and I'm going to be using sapelli for the background color. That's going to be 16 segments in a ring, and I'm going to use a 1/8 inch spacer between the segments. So that means the diamonds are going to have to be really small. And I've decided of a diamond this size, which is only 3/4 this way, and it's only 3/8 inches between the flats. To do that, first thing I'm going to do is take the maple and cut 16 pieces about 7/8 of an inch long to start with. I've got all 16 of them cut and marked in the center. Right down the center line there's a mark. What I'm going to do is go to the disc sander and sand the tops like this, just like a little house. So using the 12 segment push stick, which is 30-degree cut, this is what we get on the first sanding. These are actually two sides of the diamond. What I'm going to do next is using the 0-degree push stick, I'm going to set it on these two sides and sand the other two. I'm going to take one all the way down to the stop block. The other and I'll take partially down to the stop block and leave material to be removed later. After I glue the first two pieces of sapelli on, then I'll sand the other sides down, which will give me a nice flat smooth surface. Okay, got the 12 segment push stick, got this. We're going to go ahead and sand one down. A little bit more. Get the feathers off. There we go. We got a good angle. We got it right centered. I'm going to turn on the. I've got them all sanded down like a little house, which is actually two sides of the diamond. What I'm going to do now is use the 0 degree push stick with a stop on it. I'm going to set the stop the length of one side. This is the one here, it's sanded down. The length of one side. And I'm going to sand it down. It's hard to see. I'm going to sand one side all the way down to the stop block. The other side I'm going to sand down but stop before the stop block and leave some material to be taken off later. I'll show you why I do that. So I'm going to do that to all 16 of these. Okay, I got one of these. I'm going to sand one side down a ways, not to the stop block. Then I'm going to turn it and sand the other one all the way down to the stop block. Okay, I've sanded that one down till I get a good sharp corner. And it's not to the stop block. Now I'm going to do the other one. I'm taking it all the way down. Make sure there are no feathers on the bottom. Good, that's got it all the way down. Gives it a little bit of an odd shape. Using the 0 degree push stick with a stop block set, I've sanded this down. Now, these two sides here, these two sides are sanded down to the stop block. These two sides are sanded partially down. The ones that are sanded down to the stop block are the ones I'll glue the first two pieces of sapelli to. After they're glued on, then I will sand the sapelli and the maple both down on these two sides. It'll give me a good gluing surface. We've got all these pieces prepared for the first glue up, so we're going to need some of the sapelli now to glue on them. I cut 32 pieces. They're about 1.25 inches long, probably, I hope, plenty long. I'll take two adjoining pieces. I numbered them all as they were cut. I'm going to take two adjoining pieces, and I got to cut them at an angle. The angle's going to be 30 degrees. I'm using a 30-60 triangle to mark them. First one, I'll mark one direction. Where's my pencil? Here it is. Get a mark across here. The second one, I'm going to mark it in the opposite direction. Okay, I got them both marked. One across here and one across there. I'm going to take them to the bandsaw and cut them. After I take them to the bandsaw and cut them, then I'm going to smooth up the cut edges. Okay, I've got the 30-degree push stick here, the one for 12 segments. I'm going to go ahead and sand this cut edge. just enough till it's smooth. There we go. Now this one. Okay, I've got all 4 pieces sanded smooth now. I'm going to glue the first 2 on. I want them to extend 1 inch from the center of the diamond, so I put a 1 inch mark on them, both these 2 pieces. What I am going to do is glue the sapelli along the sides that I've sanded down to the stop block. The reason I've drawn a line on the sapelli is to give me a reference where to glue it. Obviously, if I glue it here, I wouldn't have enough material left on the top and too much on the sides. If I glued it down here, there wouldn't be enough on the sides and way too much on the top. So I'm going to line it up with a line and glue it down. This here is not the actual piece. This is just a piece I cut for reference. A little bit larger than what I'm actually using. The pieces you use, of course, will depend on the size of the diamond you make, how much material you want left behind and how much you want on the top. So that's what we're going to do next. What I'm going to do is glue these to the sides that have been sanded down to the stop block. So it's going to take just a light coat of glue. If I can get this glue open. Just a very light coat of glue. Oh, let's put it on this piece. That's plenty, probably way too much. If you got too much, it's no big deal. You sand it off later. Rub it a little bit. And line that 1 inch mark up with the center and clamp it for 15 seconds. Put a little glue on the other side. Again, probably too much. Rub this one. Clamp it down for a bit. Get it lined up. And clamp them together for just a little bit. Make sure they're lined. Make sure they're flat. Good. Everything looks good. And we're going to let them sit for 15 minutes. Okay, it's been 15 minutes. So what we're going to do now is I'm going over to bandsaw and cut off some of this excess. Being careful not to get too close. After that, we'll go over to the sander and we'll sand one side flat. After we get it flat, we'll turn it over and we'll use the 0-degree push stick with a stop block to sand the other side down to the stop block. So let me go over to the bandsaw and get some of this excess. Okay, what I'm going to do is very carefully sand one side down freehand right to the maple. Then I'm going to turn it over and use the push stick and sand down into this side where it's flat and smooth. Then I'll turn it over again and go ahead and sand it down to the stop block and get it to size. So let's do that. That ain't good. Okay, it's right down pretty close to the maple. Now I'm going to flip it over. And get this side flat and smooth. That's nice and flat and smooth. We'll reverse it again. I'm just going to sand it all the way down to the stop block this time. Okay, that's got it. Got a perfect diamond now. We're ready to glue on the other two sides. So let's go back over there. Okay, now we're ready to glue on the other two sides. There we go. We're going to glue them on just like that. We're going to use a very light coat of glue again. Rub it back and forth, get the glue spread good. Get it all spread out good. Line the backs up. Glue it down. Pinch it. Make sure it's tight on the bottom. Okay. A little glue on the other side. Rub this side good. Line it up. Make sure the bottom's flat. Seam's tight on the bottom. Tight on the top. Pinch it down. No, we just got to let it set for 15 minutes. Only thing we got left now to do is trim them up and get them to the size we want for the segments. I built these a little bit big here just for demonstration purposes. These are larger than they really need to be. A lot of wasted wood, but that's okay. I'm going to do now is go ahead and prepare 15 more. Actually, I think I made 17 altogether, so I'll prepare the rest of them, and then we'll go on and get them trimmed to size. I got all of them put together now. What I'm going to do is clean up all the faces and check, make sure all the joints are good and tight. I made 16 more. I've actually got 17 counting the first one I made. It's always good to have an extra. So I'm going to go ahead and sand the faces off and check the joints and see what they look like. I got them all sanded and they're looking good. All the seams seem to be tight. and good. What I've got now is just blocks with the diamond in them. I've got to turn these into segments. And when I turn them into segments, I want the diamond centered top to bottom and from side to side. So first thing I'm going to do is measure from both points of the diamond down and draw a line on all of them and sand to that line. That makes sure they're all the same height from one side, and it makes sure they're not cocked if I measure from both ends. After I do that, then we'll work on the other side with a stop block. So I'm going to go ahead and just measure these from the points down. I'm trying to keep as much material as I can. I'm using 0.6 inches. Measure from both points. And then just draw a line through the and that gives me a line to sand to. If I do that on all of them, then they'll all be the same to that one edge. I'm going to go ahead and mark them all. Okay, I've got them all marked. You might see this line right here. I don't know if you can see it or not. I'm going to take and sand them all down to the line so they should all be equal distance from that edge. Do this one. Took it right down to the line. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of them. Okay, these are all sanded, and you can see they're all lined up straight and level sitting on that sanded side. So I am going to use the push stick with a stop block to sand the other side. I'll set it to double the distance from here down. I've got all these sides marked just in case there's a difference between them, so that when I go to glue them up, I can put all these marks on the same direction, either down or up, makes no difference. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the stop block. I'm going to have to redo this clip. The first time I did it was not good, so we've got one side of these blocks marked where I cut it down. I'm going to use the 0 push stick with a stop block set, and we're going to sand down the top. Like I said, this is a reenactment of that because the first one wasn't good. So I'll just sand down the top. And now what I've got is both sides approximately the same. I still got one side marked, and I'll put all those marked sides in the same direction on glue up, because there may be a slight difference. Not enough to bother, but enough so that you might notice if they weren't all the same direction. So this block is good to go. I'm going to have to cut the sides at 11.25 degrees to give me the final segment. This is what it looks like. I've got to cut these into segments now. I want them centered. I want a 7-inch ring of 16 segments, which is 1 3/8 inch, but I'm going to use a 1/8 spacer between them, similar to this maple spacer. So that means it's going to be 1 1/4 inch across. So I've got to cut each edge separately. I've got a line drawn through the center of what's going to be the inside. One segment, I've got a mark 5/8 inch from center. which is where I want to make the cut. This will be on the outside of the ring. So I'm going to line this mark up with the edge of my sled, which is where the blade cuts. Okay, I got it lined up. I'm going to put a pencil mark on the sled where the center line is on the inside. Now, I'll hold the segments center line on that mark. I can cut one side, flip it over, cut the other side, and I should have a 1 1/4 inch segment. So once I get it lined up where I want to cut it, then I clamp it down. I would not suggest holding it with your fingers. And I go ahead and cut one side. I'm going to flip it over, rotate it this way, line it back up, reclamp it, and cut the other side. I'm going to do them all that way. That gives it the cut. That gives it the cut I want. 1 1/4 inch across. Let me get the ruler and measure that. An 1 1/4 inch. Of course, it's not quite as accurate as cutting segments with a stop block. Okay, what I'm going to do now that they're cut is lightly sand the cut edges just to get rid of any irregularities. Not much at all, just a wee bit. I'm using a 16 segment push stick. Now, you probably can't see any difference, but it's nice and flat and smooth now for sure. I'm going to do that with all 16 of them. Well, all 17. I'll do the extra one also. I've got some maple. I've prepared 1/8 inch thick. I'm going to cut it into pieces exactly the height of these. When I get that done, we'll be ready to do a glue up on the ring. I'm going to go ahead and cut 16 pieces of this. We got the spacers cut. We got them put in. What I'm doing right now, we're going to dry clamp it. Always dry clamp it first. Then I'm going to hold it up to the light and check for gaps between any of the segments. This is good. So it is ready to be glued. The diameter come out a little bit bigger than the 7 inch I was shooting for. That happens. So I'll build the box to fit the pattern ring or the feature ring. Rather than trying to build the ring to fit the box, I'll just make the box fit the ring. That'll work out okay. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and glue this up. Okay, let's do the glue up on this thing. Get us a little glue here. Take a segment out, take one of the spacers out. I'm going to do the glue on both sides of the segment. And then put the spacers up against them. Very last one. That's enough. There we go. We got glue on all of them. Let's get the glue out of the way. Okay. Put the clamp on it. Make sure clamp centered good on the ring. Get this mic out of the way because it ain't going to work with this. Oh, come on. Clamp her down. Clamp her down a little. Check and make sure they're all right. None of them out of place. Make sure the spacers are in the right spot. Put the clamp on the top. Keep it flat and lined up. Then go ahead and clamp the band down tight. That should be tight enough. Pull the top clamp off. Make sure it's nice and level around the top. Yeah, pretty close. Now let it dry, and we should have a good ring. This is the spare segment I made. You can see it's got a nice diamond. It's got absolutely tight glue joints on it. It's well centered. The first diamonds I made were nothing like that, I guarantee you. It took a lot of learning to be able to do this. You can see it's a good segment, and I hope I will help somebody make some good diamonds without as much of a learning curve as I had. The way I'm making these diamonds is not the only way it can be done. You can actually use a larger piece, this is just reference, and cut 4 pieces out of it. Of course, each piece has to be big enough to have some room to sand and get the surfaces smooth. I have found, I've made them this way, and I have found I don't save that much material. You'd think you would, but I don't really save that much more. It's a lot harder for me to do. I don't know, maybe somebody else finds it's easier, and I don't get that good of a product. But yes, you can cut one into 4 pieces like this and use them, and you do indeed get a little bit better grain match. But the way I do it, I like it a lot better, and I get a much better finished product.